But I think this record is even less easy listening than the previous record, The Bends. And when The Bends came out, a lot of people said there were no singles on it. And I think with this one, I think it's even more that case of that. But I think, we don't really think of music in terms of singles. Although we think of each song in isolation, we don't, there's nothing like conceptual or progressive about the music. It's every piece of music every song we do, we try and treat differently, production-wise. I mean, this is the first album we produced ourselves as well. So it's a dense record. We always try really hard to combat the skip culture of the CD format by trying to make people sit down and listen to this in one sitting. But I think this is less like that compared to the Bends, if you see what I mean. I think that I'm quite happy if people just want to dive into this record and extract stuff from it, because I think emotionally each piece of music is very intense, so I think people will get a lot from it.
What is your mood like when you're in the process of recording? Put in and actually make?
Well, it varies. I mean, collectively, I suppose it's one of that's a good question, of neurosis, of uncertainty, of excitement, of boredom, of lots of things. It depends. You can do your best recording and you don't realise it until you hear it being played back. So, just our mood on this record, it's quite stressful because we were constantly aware of the fact that we were producing the album ourselves. So my personal agenda on this record was that I wanted to try and enjoy as much of the recording process as possible. It's very important because the last record had been quite difficult.
In what way?
In that we'd been recording in London, which we didn't find at the time agreeable, and that we were going through sort of growing pains as a group because it was our first big album to do. So I really wanted to try and enjoy as much of the experience as possible, and some of it was enjoyable and some of it wasn't, and I think it's always going to be like that. A combination of moods and things, really.
Now this album definitely rhymes with high expectations.
Yes.
Not really so much in terms of commercially, it seems, but
a critical thing.
Yeah, how does that?
Well, it's it's very flattering that we've got 5 stars in Q magazine in England and 10 out of 10 in the NME, and stuff like that. But the important thing is that we recorded the album in isolation. We recorded it in this old country house in this deserted valley in the middle of England in the countryside, and we recorded 30% of it in this run-down apple farm that we rehearse in. And in fact we rehearsed and arranged and most of the Bends in as well, just outside Oxford. So we spend a lot of our time, or we try to spend a lot of our time outside of that kind of attention and coverage. So obviously it's nice to get good reviews, but we were kind of in a fortunate position because when we started we had a big single called Creep on Pablo Honey, and then critically we were ignored or attacked because people thought we were a one-hit band and we didn't really have anything to follow up Creep on Pablo Honey. So which was fair enough. But then I would also say that was a record we recorded in 2.5 weeks, so and it had a much longer shelf life than it really deserved because of the success of Creep, and we didn't expect it to. So we expected to record the Bends quite shortly afterwards, but it was a year and a half late over. It's 2.5 years later. So
I read that Q magazine article.
Yeah, that's quite an old piece now in the press kit. That's like a preview piece.
Yeah, at this, yeah, I guess it is. I'm just, I was really fascinated by what you guys went through after the success of Creep, because I'll be very honest, I wasn't aware of what was going on with the band. Was that a difficult time for you? I mean, you're traveling around and you're successful, right? You know, people.
Yeah, but on the back of one song.
Yeah. What
Yeah, it's very difficult because it was like a pop hit, especially in America, because it was such a big hit in America. And I think it took us a long time to sort of get our heads together about it. So it was a difficult time. It was very difficult. But we came through it, and we survived it as a group. And I think the main reason why we survived the experience of like having a big success of one single and then like having people sort of fall away from us after that was that we'd been together as a group and played music together since we were like 14 years old when we were all at school together. So I think the fact that we had that history behind us was very important. When we signed to EMI in the winter of 1991, we thought that at the time the most important thing was the fact that we were like signed to a major record company with a contract as professional musicians, and that the friendship thing, which we'd had before then as a group, and the reasons we were playing music together would be like a secondary thing. But the longer we do this and the more we meet people whose music we love and admire, like U2 or R.E.M. or loads of people, we realise, who are groups of people who've known each other for a long time, we realise now that the friendship thing is like really important. It is the more important thing to keep you going and successful and happy and sane, rather than the career so-called professionalism thing.
I do get a sense that you guys are very accepting of each other, and
well, you have to be very patient. That's very well a good observation. I mean, we're very patient with. We never go into a studio unless we've worked out what we're going to play and like all the parts and stuff. We hardly ever do, hardly ever. We have to be very patient with each other because technically, it varies between person to person on like their abilities on their instruments. It's not like we're not a group of like session players who can play every single style perfectly. But it's good to have limitations. It's good to have boundaries. It's very important in creativity to have limits because it gives you something to frame what you're doing if it's going well. Or it gives you something to rail against or try and like overcome and struggle against. Things aren't going well. So they're both. So it's very important. So yeah, you're very. Again, it's a very good point. And it means also you'll try things unorthodoxly and differently from conventional approaches because you don't know what the conventional approach is or style or technique is. So we have to be. Everyone is very patient with each other.
What about this kind of love-hate relationship with the progressive rock?
Well, this is something that's been tagged on to us. I mean, about the new record more than anything. I think the record was. Excuse me, you have to forgive me. A friend called me at 5:30 in the morning from England, thinking it was got the time wrong. So I'm sorry, I had my sleep interrupted.
No, I know how grueling these things are anyway.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, right. So the progressive thing. Okay, well, like the interesting comment that I like to make is that how important it is to master an album. How to master a record. This record was mastered by a gentleman called Chris Blair, who masters like loads of people in England, like Morrissey, Oasis. He's one of the most important people for the job. He's like the Bob Ludwig or Harry Weinberger for the UK. And he mastered the bends, right? And with the bends as well, we edited a lot of stuff and sped things up and changed a lot of stuff at the last moment. And I asked him, like, on the second day we were mastering Abbey Road with OK Computer, what was the big differences between the two records sonically for him. And he said to me that he'd been working at Abbey Road now for like nearly 20 years, over 20 years, and like OK Computer reminded him a lot of records that were recorded in Abbey Road and all brought to him to be mastered at the time in the 70s. And there were albums that were recorded by a band with an engineer as opposed to like a producer, and had a kind of more open sort of spacious sound, less compressed, like with the bends, and more delicate sounding and more extreme at the same time, less just one sort of sonic level. And that was what he was going to try and bring out, that kind of return to that kind of 70s sound on the record. And I thought that was really interesting.
Oh, that's very interesting.
Yeah, that it reminded him of that kind of thing, the time when people like Floyd and, I don't know, loads of people were recording in Abbey Road in the 70s, mid-70s. So it's progressive rock, my brother Johnny is kind of like the person who has all the Genesis and the Floyd collections and stuff, and he has this thing about he's always trying to find some good progressive rock music, and he never does really find it. He says it's all generally terrible. Some of the Floyd you could say is progressive rock, but not all of it, obviously. So it's not really, it's nothing really to do with us.
How did your sound develop? I mean, if I was to listen to you guys back in your...
Well, when we started, we were at school, we had 3 saxophones. We were a pop band. We were the main, because when we started at school, because this is another reason, it's interesting looking back how much it has informed how we behave now. Because we always started for our own entertainment, and because we were to stave off boredom. We all went to this school. It was a private school. It was boys only, and it was not very good. It was creatively very oppressive, and so we started the band to try and escape, to create our own sort of creative space within this insular, stifling environment. And we would rehearse and play a lot in the music school and village halls around Abingdon, Oxford, but we wouldn't do any shows. We did our first concert when we were 16 years old, and we all wore black and played very loud because we thought that's what you had to do. So they didn't really change things there. But we never really, we were always quite insular, we never really, it's not like we got together to play the music for ourselves. It's not like we had this we want to go and play in London and be noticed straight away and stuff like that. That's always been a secondary factor to us. We've never done the music as a sort of paving to recognition or fame, And so we've always had that quality of we all still live in Oxford, of being a bit removed or just outside from London or from where things are happening or people are reporting from, from the age of 14 onwards.
That's interesting. I just want to go back to one thing for a second. I've always wanted to know, what is it like to record in Abbey Road?
Abbey Road, it's fantastic. I mean, it's an institution first and foremost. I mean, 15 years ago, all the engineers and people had to wear white lab coats still, not anymore, but 15 years ago. It's we recorded some of the bends in Studio 2, which is obviously the Beatles' room, and we did some string overdubs. We only did string overdubs, I think, on this record, in Studio 2 this time. And we did a lot more of the bends in Abbey Road. It's an institution. That's the important thing about Abbey Road, is it's like a hospital or I don't know. It's great, but it's it's not like a farmhouse, with a great kitchen with great food and just a big old space that you can record in. You are in a EMI corporate thing, but the people there are fantastic. I mean, and again, the people there, you could criticise them because they're all this is how we've done this thing for 10, 15, 25 years, so, and it's good, so why should we change it, And there was this whole thing about mastering the Beatles reissues. It was should it be digitally or analog? Should it be DDD or AAD remastered? So there's a lot of people there who are kind of very stuck in their ways, but it's amazing, it's an amazing experience, and it's in a kind of crappy part of London. It's in St John's Wood, which is really lovely but really expensive. So it's not aren't any sort of cool clubs or bars. But so there's good and bad things, but on the whole, great.
Yeah, and I can imagine going against that tradition particularly.
Well, Johnny played Hammond on fake plastic trees on the bends, and it's the same Hammond that John Lennon played on, you know, on Abbey Road and stuff. And there's a picture of him playing his Hammond, you know. And like they say that you can like, there's this room at the end of Studio 2, this little box room where the Beatles used to like do their reefer, and you can like inhale and you can like still smell the reefer coming out of the room, you know, from the 60s.
Now, how about the in terms of, I mean, obviously you guys aren't the Beatles status and
no,
but,
no.
But thank God for that. But how are you dealing with the fame and the attention?
Well, I mean, on Monday night we did this gig at Irving Plaza in New York, and it was ridiculous. Like U2 was there, and REM, and Madonna, and Brad Pitt, and people like that. Ridiculous. And you know, I don't know. It's nice when you meet people who you really admire and you like what they do, and they're really. And it's reassuring to see that, like, 9 times out of 10, they're, like, decent people. They behave decently, like Oasis. They're really cool, really nice people who just care about music. So, you know. And so that's... Again, you see, it's like, it's very difficult to respond to that question because it's not something that we got into doing this for or even consider. And to be honest with you, the good thing about meeting people in music principally who we admire, who are successful, is if we want to do some stuff with them, because of like, you know, but it's more stuff like more dance stuff at the moment, like Massive Attack and some Mowax stuff. It's a guy called DJ Shadow who's from San Francisco. He's gonna try doing some remixing of a track called Subterranean, Hemsicalian on the album. So, I mean, it's not real. I mean, and the other thing as well, for a lot of these people, all it is like, you know, in New York there's a lot of people around, and it was like a hot gig to go to, and it's like the spotlight, and then next week it'll be someone else, you know, someone else's thing. So, and ultimately we all go back to like Oxford, where like we've lived since I was born in Oxford, so you know we've lived for a long time, so it doesn't mean anything.
Yeah, I can. That's definitely balancing.
Yeah, it's like Athens, I suppose. I mean, you know, for the REM people, I hope.
You guys don't really seem to factor into the kind of competition between, you know, like Blur and Oasis and that.
No, but again, it goes back to like always being like outside of London and outside of. It's very important, you know, because that would be appalling if like the music that we were trying to do was driven by like, you know, before on the onset of recording was driven by a kind of like where it was going to take us and competitively against other people. You know, that's not the plot at all. So, you know, we're definitely not a group of people who like, oh, we've seen people play like big theatres or stadiums, like, oh, we want to do. See, I was thinking about this. It's like, that's why there's this whole thing about stadium rock and like really terrible stuff by people like Simple Minds and things. What those people were doing in the 80s was that they'd had the stadium thing, and they were trying to like write music. It was like writing music for a lifestyle. If you see what I mean, it should like music should be like a soundtrack. If it's good music, it should be evocative and a soundtrack for your life. But you can't really, you know, and you have to be very talented to be able to like write music as you would write a ticket for where you wanted to go. If you see what I mean, you know, it's like I want to play stadiums, so I shall write stadium rock music that will be really successful, but plays in stadiums. And that's what all those bands were trying to do in the 80s. They wanted to do like write music to fulfill the lifestyle of like playing these places. If you see what I mean, rather than writing about, you can't. That'd be appalling. Do you understand what I'm saying? You know, that's a really obvious point, but I mean, it's like.
No, I don't think it is an obvious point.
You know,
No.
It's like. What's it like? It's like attempting to sort of. It's like you know, I want to go to Hawaii and live there, so I'm going to, you know, do X next. It's like wish fulfillment, you know. It's like, you know, I can do this thing to play stadium, so I'm going to write this kind of music. And it's like, that's not what should motivate you. It's not what motivates us. That's
So
thing,
what
you know.
does motivate you guys?
Well, I mean, the main songwriter is Tom, the singer, and he does like most of the songs like on acoustic guitar, and it's his melodies and lyrics. And then we just like take the bones of the songs
and arrange them and write stuff around them and write the parts and arrange it. And Johnny writes some of the music as well, my brother. And one of the things we learned on this record is that you can't write a song on an acoustic guitar and then record it and take out the acoustic guitar. You can't do that. It doesn't work like that.
How did you discover this?
Because you only got the first song on the record's called Airbag, and Tom wanted to try it by cutting some beats up, like DJ Shadow, my uncle, and it was done because I'm sorry, my friend woke me up. You have to forgive me. It was very rude of me.
No.
Anyway, so you cut these beats out that Phil played live and put onto the. It was all really rough, you know. I mean, it's all really rough and they're not in time and everything, but it's great, really exciting. And then he played it with a guide like electric, and then got rid of it, and it just wasn't as good. I said, we've got to put it back. It's got to be there. So put it in, and it was like great again. So just stuff like that, you know. You can't take something that is like has some kind of like organic acoustic bass, and relatively quickly try and make it into something that's a piece of program music. I mean, you know, it's possible to sort of combine styles and things. And that's the exciting thing, to make something different and new out of like different approaches. But I mean, the whole programming thing as well takes a long time.
Your relationship with your brother.
Yes.
You know, what is it? A lot of people wouldn't want to work with a relative of any kind, and you do. What is it like?
It's very good. He has a very dry sense of humour. He's a very funny guy. He's very gentle. He's very polite. It's a very English sense of humour. I mean, he very much enjoys playing up the Englishman in America. When Americans say, you know, how are you today, sir? And he says, well, I'm jolly fine, thank you for asking, and how is your good self, or something, you know, whatever. Which is a bit disorientating. But he, you know, really enjoys being here, and a lot of his favourite music is American, obviously, you know, from, you know, the old jazz stuff. He's a big, like, jazz fan, like Jimmy Smith and stuff like that, through to, you know, loads of stuff, obviously. He only ever loses his mellowness when he's ill, sense of humour when he's ill. And he's very mature for 25 this year, 24 now, he's 24, so... And,
so how do your parents feel?
Oh, it's just my mother, and initially she was like, my God, you know, I mean, she had me down, I was going to be like an academic or a lawyer, and Johnny was going to be like some kind of musician, but after going to college, and he dropped out of college to be in the band, because he was the youngest person when we were signed, and he was just doing through his first term at college in Oxford, and he had to drop out, so... He was helped by that, by one of his tutors in psychology and music, this guy called Charlie. I don't know if you read a book, you know, a writer called Hanif Kurashai, called The Buddha of Suburbia, and it's about like, it's about this guy who lives up in suburban London, and anyway, one of the protagonist's friends goes to New York and like is in a punk rock band and hangs out. And this was Charlie, and he used to live with Iggy Pop, and he's my brother's teacher, and he's like the character in this book. And so when Johnny said, I'm going to want to be in a rock band, the teacher goes, go for it, you know. So that was fine.
That's wow.
Yeah.
Let's see what. And this other thing, you guys are nice.
Nice. What a damning word in the wrong hands, though. Like a girl's hands, you know. The moment she says a guy's nice, you know you're fucked. You're not fucked. Anyway, sorry. Nice. What, polite?
Actually, it's funny to digress is from my original point, but that's true, isn't it? That's the kiss of death.
Yeah, that and cute. Well, cute can be a bit ambiguous, but cute can be quite... More England, if someone says you're cute, then... Although it's changing, actually. I mean, it's more promising now. There's more chance of a relationship with someone that says you're cute, of attraction. Well, cute used to be like nice. It used to be like, forget it. Anyway.
Do you get those?
No, we don't. Well, no, because we, obviously we're not the most sort of glamorous group of guys in the world, and it's not what we were doing it for. And we used to get press in the UK which said they look like five ugly misfits in a police identity parade and stuff like this, and and this new issue of Select, it was terrible pictures of us, and we were already tired. Select's music magazine UK, and the copies like Relax Girls, they've all got partners or something, which isn't true anyway. But I mean, it's we do look terrible, so But I don't give a fuck about it. We don't really give a fuck about it. I mean, it's just really hysterical when you meet these models who come and see the gig, and it's like, oh yeah, all right, thank you for coming.
Do you worry that if people are paying more attention to you, that it's not because of who you are or even what you do?
Well, yeah, but I mean that you should never assume that people are paying attention to you because of who you are. If you think that, you're damned. You're doomed. You should never think that. That's got nothing to do with this. That would nobody knows who we are, and I hope they never do. So on one level, obviously. I think that's appalling. I mean, I would never presume that I would know who my heroes are, like Stipe or Eitzel or Joy Division magazine, Soul, Hal Green. That would be an intrusion on intimacy, and I don't want to, because there's a difference between that and if you see what I mean. It's I would never assume that I know these people's minds, but I'd like to think I know how I feel about the songs, about the characters and all these people's music, and that's I don't want to know. I don't want to intrude upon what they're really like, because it would destroy how I see the songs in my head, because my interpretation of this stuff is always going to be different from theirs, because music that they've created has punctuated my life. It's not the soundtrack to their lives that I'm interested in. It's the soundtrack to my life, their music.
That's okay. That's fantastic.
Yeah.
I think that's ideal. But I guess what I'm not worried about, but you can't prevent people from not treating your music in the same way. You can't prevent people, be they big, small, important, unimportant, whatever, from thinking, I've heard this music, I know who these guys are. You can't.
Right? No, yeah. But it's not us, obviously. I mean, I don't think anyone. I mean, and I think when people have done interviews or done pieces where they've been very accurate about things. I mean, there's a real angle you can do about us as well, which is quite sort of dyspeptic and critical, and it's completely fair enough. But it's just it's very limiting. I mean, we've had a couple of pieces been like that years ago, but I mean. It's this kid turned up to the hotel the other day, and he'd driven 1,200 miles, and it was he was a big fan. He wanted to get into the show, and we couldn't get him in because it's just impossible. And it's and he was really upset about it. And he was well, but then if one of my heroes is playing, I'm not going to hassle them. It's I wouldn't really want that much contact. Between the. And I've met some of my heroes, and it's a strange thing, because really they have in the flesh nothing to do with their music, in a way. I can explain that of how you like their music. It's completely that kind of magic, that ingredient, that special X. It's still secret when you meet them. And that's great. I really think that's great.
So who are? Tell me about.
Well, people like Stipe and Mills and REM people and U2 and Mark Heitzel, Mark McCaughey came to the gig in New York. Do you know a band called Miracle Legion? They're really good. First 2 albums on Rough Trade, really good. People like that. I didn't meet him though. He's big. Tom's brothers, big fans of his. So
how do your
Oasis? It's just courtesy, really. You know.
You must. I mean, since you guys all knew each other from
age 14, whatever, 12, 13, 14, 13, 14.
How do your fellow peers, the people that you knew at the same time, how do they regard you? I mean, do you still keep up tabs?
Yeah, vaguely. Well, not really at school so much because we all split up, went to different colleges and stuff. But there was a very difficult period about 2 years ago where the novelty of doing this had worn off amongst our friends and ourselves, and it was now like a job. And so it's very difficult psychologically to maintain friendships at a certain point, because you go away for up to 2 months at a time, 2.5, and come back and then go away again, and meanwhile your friends have got on with their lives, obviously, and doing their own things in London and Oxford, say, or wherever. And what happens is it goes from oh wow, you just come back from wow, you've been to done this for the first time, to oh well, you're doing this, you're doing that. Do you know what I mean? What was magical becomes commonplace, but still removed from their experience, and vice versa. And it's you can kind of drift out of touch with people, which is not drift out of touch, but yeah, you do, but people don't hold it against you, and that's kind of bad in a way, because it's well, he's going to be doing this and this and this, so I won't write to him 2 months later maybe, but I won't expect anything from Colin until whenever. So it's difficult. It's very difficult.
So what made it not feel like a job again?
I think sort of reclaiming some ground, really, of the reasons that we started doing this, which was doing our own record, really. Obviously the success at the moment in the UK, it's very exciting. Obviously that's good. And just feeling a bit of stability and security, so yeah, I think those are the things that are making it sort of interesting again.
Do you, just to look specifically at this album, because it occurs to me I should ask some questions about that, but do you have a favorite song?
Not really. I mean, I have songs I'm not so keen on. I got just a couple of things that I kind of are unhappy about. But I'd say 80% of it I'm very happy with, very proud of. So, and for a first effort of producing it ourselves, I think that's a good straight rate. Definitely. But if I was to select songs, I really love The Tourist at the end, and I really like Exit Music for a Film, and I like Airbag, and I like No Surprises. Our last 3 songs, it's No Surprises, Lucky, and The Tourist, I think are really wonderful.
Also the video.
Paranoid Android. You see, I really like that as well. You see, that was just the song Paranoid Android was just... Well, again, you see, we all had different approaches to lots of stuff. You see, we all come from different directions, and one of the things we were trying to do collectively was we were into this whole thing about... We'd done it on the Bends, where we digitally edited a couple of bits of music together, and done kind of brutal editing, where you just bits of music, you splice it together, like Beatles on on Magical Mystery Tour or whatever, and we really wanted to try that just to see if we could make musical sense out of disparate elements and overall in a piece of music. So that's what we did with Paranoid Android, and it was just supposed to be. It was kind of one of the first things we finished on the sessions, and we'd listen to it and we'd just giggle. We felt like sort of irresponsible schoolboys who were just doing this this thing that was just a bit of fun. There's a lot of humour in it. There's a lot of twisted humour. We'd always giggle at the end of listening to it because we felt we'd just done this really naughty thing, because nobody does like a 6.5 minute song, you know, with like all these changes. It's like ridiculous. But then, you know, a lot of the dance stuff, like DJ Shadow and stuff like that, that's kind of what he was doing on his debut album, Introducing. He was trying to take like disparate pieces of music and try and put them together in one piece as a sort of collage of things, but in a way that made sense, you know. So we were like really inspired by that.
Interesting. Do the songs have a meaning for you? You didn't write.
No, I didn't write the words or the melodies.
So I mean, do the songs, and you can speak for the other members of the band if you
Yeah.
like. But do you say this song means?
Well,
this to me?
when Tom does a vocal take when we're playing, say, and if it's really good or if he's really happy with it, he says that he knows when something has a meaning for him musically and the song is good for him because he sees pictures inside his head, like really vivid imagery, which I really like.
I really like that. I do like his lyric writing. I think he's very good. I think he has the right combination of the oblique and the powerful in terms of like imagery. And I think I like what he's trying to do with this record, where he was trying to like just have lots of different voices and different angles and different approaches and try to be less internalized. I mean, you know, we had some criticism for the title of this record, OK Computer, because it's quite general.
Now, are you guys? I was reading one of the press releases. Are you guys gonna do videos for every one of the songs? And they're all gonna be
It's an ambition rather than a set in stone, for the two reasons of time and money, because it's so expensive and we can't afford to spend loads of money on videos. We should be spending on music. Sorry.
No, go ahead. Yeah.
Now what you
Well, I guess, but does that, if it's even an intention, then does that mean that you see the songs as being linked in some way, that it is I don't want to call it concept?
No, I don't think the songs will be. I mean, because of the different media that we're doing these 3 videos. I mean, there's Paranoid Android videos done by a guy called Magnus Carlsen, and it's based in Stockholm. And it's animation, it's cartoon, and then we're doing a video for a song called Let Down, which is stop motion collage animation. Like, it's kind of much more basic, but. And I don't have a clue how it will look. It could look really good, it might be a bit strange. Done by a group of artists who just graduated from Royal College last year called Straw Donkey, who've had some really cool animation put up on the new U2 tour. They've got some of their stuff up on the big TV screen. It's just amazing. So, and then Karma Police, which is like Tom in this kind of like nightmare sort of car journey, which was filmed in Norfolk last week by a gentleman called 3 weeks ago, about 3 weeks ago, by a guy called John Glazer, who directed the Street Spirit video. So there's going to be lots of different things mixed up and mixed and matched.
Now, one personal question, as long as we're on videos. Can you please explain High and Dry video to me?
Which one? The robbery one?
Yeah, the diner.
Well, it was just like, I mean, you know, retrospectively, I don't think it was like one of our best videos, but I mean, I kind of like the spirit that it was done in. I mean, it was obviously just like a Pulp Fiction pastiche, and it was this guy's first directorial, serious directing job. But I kind of like it. I mean, I like it despite the fact that it's probably the least original of the videos that we've done for the Bends. And the plot is that these 2 guys, this man and this woman, have done a bank job, and they are going over to give the money or whatever, the safe deposit thing, to meet someone in the diner, and in return they get like paid for the job. But of course they open the thing and it's not their money, it's a bomb, so they get screwed.
Okay. So. Yeah, I guess it's pretty much what it seemed. I just didn't know if there was like a linkage to this.
And the guy, the businessman in the thing is like the guy who gets the couple into the bank, who's the inside, and he's killed as well.
That's right.
You know.
And the Magnus
Carlsen, who did Paranoid Android. It's got nothing to do with High and Dry.
No, exactly. But that I'm just thinking of your videos. I find that one was the animation for that.
Oh, Paranoid Android.
For Paranoid Android was just amazing.
Well, it's the reason why we really like it as well. It's like the first time we watched it, we thought, oh no, is this just like a Robin cartoon? Robin is kind of like a sort of twisted Swedish Beavis and Butthead, but I don't know, a lot of I never really got into Beavis and Butthead, but a lot of people really like it. But anyway, Tom really likes it, Beavis and Butthead. But anyway, what was my point? Magnus animation, yeah. But watching it a few times, it's like it's really well put together, and the imagery of like loads of stuff, the angel and the helicopter and the river and the rain down section is probably the most successful bit actually, the middle section. It's so well done. It's very interesting how he drew and realised the video for the song, because Ed and Phil and the band met him when they were doing some press in Sweden. Anyway, he's a very quiet chap. He looks like Robin. He looks like Robin in the video. And he just got up in the morning and he put on like a Paranoid Android like 9 in the morning, and he just spent like 12 hours just playing it over and over again, not seeing anyone, just writing lots of stuff down that he thought would be cool. And this beautiful sunny day in Stockholm, like with his windows open in his like flat, just looking out over the city and just thinking about, just brainstorming himself about what was going on in his head and in the song. And we're all very happy with it, and it's like one of my favourite things, really.
Yeah, it's very, particularly with the song, it just, each one kind of casts a different interpretation on the other.
Yeah.
It kind of makes it a third thing.
Yeah, there's a censorship thing in America as well, which completely bemuses and baffles us, because it's like there's a scene where this politician figure is like wearing this like leather codpiece, and he chops off his arms and legs when he's trying to hack on the lamppost. And that's fine over here, but for some reason, like the mermaids, like in the original, you can see their breasts, and like we had to like get them covered over with like swimming costumes in America, because for some reason, like a bit of like violence is okay, but any sex or like a woman's body, it's like no. And it's like, hang on a minute. I mean, to be honest, to be perfectly frank with you, we could have kind of understood like if they had a problem with some guy chopping his arms and legs off. But I mean, women's breasts and mermaids as well, it's like fucked up.
So one final group of questions for you. Then you should actually probably take that.
Yeah, I should get some food actually, that's what I need.
Then just back to this, the nice or polite issue.
Yeah.
In the sense that you guys, I mean, in terms of it came up in the Q article, I mean, you don't fit the kind of wild partying image, not only of stereotypical rockers, but that some of your fellow contemporary bands are living out very wildly.
Sure.
Is that something that, why, do you feel pressure to be more partiers, or I guess that, deals with the same thing, you're out in Oxford?
Well, I stayed up till like 5:30 in the morning in New York. We had to get up at 8 o'clock to fly to Los Angeles, after we played the Plaza. So that was quite rock and roll. But I mean, I bet like, if you're on tour like 7 months out of a year, then you can't really, 8 months rather, you can't burn the candle all the time, because your performance suffers. I went to see a band called the Charlatans play in the UK towards the end of the tour, and they were already tired and the performance wasn't that great because they were obviously, and then I found out later it was because they'd, spent a lot of time doing the party thing, which is great fun,
And do you agree with the assessment that you guys are kind of polite, friendly?
Yeah, I think so. I hope so. Yeah, I don't know. I'm sorry if it's really boring, but